Each year during the first 4 weeks in January, we go through the various 4 books, and this week we're going through What It Does that are in the Science of Mind textbook. However, we've sort of mixed it up a little bit this year with our animation theme. So let me just talk about, first of all, excerpts from the Science of Mind of What It Does. The Spirit can give us only what we can take. It imparts of itself only as we partake of the nature. It can tell us only what we can understand. The infinite knowingness becomes our wisdom only in such a degree as we embody the intelligence. In an intelligent study of the teachings of the Science of Mind, we come to understand that all is love, yet all is law. Love rules through law. Love is the divine givingness. Law is the way. Love is spontaneous. Law is impersonal. We are surrounded by an infinite possibility. It is goodness, life, law, and reason in expressing itself through us. It becomes more fully conscious of its own being. When we think, something happens to thought. The field through which thought operates is infinite. There is no reason to doubt it. No matter how it is approached to thought, there can be no limit. So we will say that it is the nature of being to react in this way. Here and now we are surrounded by and immersed in and infinite good. How much of this infinite good is ours? All of it. And how much of may we have to use? As much of it as we can embody. Which gets us to today's talk. Taming the Green Monster. And I don't mean envy.
You were supposed to bring a green. You weren't last week.
Oh, well.
He's not the green monster.
I'm not the green. Envy's the green monster, and also there's some other green monsters we're going to talk about. And since annually during the month of January we review the fundamentals of science of mind as they're outlined in Ernest Holmes' classic piece, What We Believe, and in the 10 core concepts taught in the curriculum of our foundations and science of mind classes. One is in the bulletin, and the other is in a real spiffy bookmark that is free and also features the 5 steps of affirmative prayer or treatment. We are skipping around with the statements and the concepts depending on what we find within our umbrella theme, animating your life, through universal principles found in animated movies. We're using the animated movies Happy Feet, which was the first week. Last week we did Finding Nemo. This week we're doing Shrek. And next week, Cars, to illustrate our basic teachings. Between Happy Feet and Finding Nemo, we've covered 15 of the 23 statements contained in What We Believe and the 10 core concepts. To review the ones we have covered so far, refer to the back of your program as well as the bookmarks. In week 1 we covered, we believe in God, the living Spirit, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. We believe in the incarnation of Spirit in everyone, and that all people are incarnations of the one Spirit. We believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny, for we understand that the life of all is God. We believe the universal Spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that we are surrounded by this creative mind which receives the direct impress of our thoughts and acts upon us. You'll hear this a couple times today's talk. And once again, the creative mind which receives the direct impress of our thoughts and acts upon it. We believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that goal is sure to be attained by all. Core concept 5, the perfect whole, choice, free will. Oneness embraces all seeming opposites. Consequences of our thinking actions. We are not punished for our sins, but by our sins. And that was pretty much what was covered in week 1, Are You Happy? Now last week, in Finding Nemo, we believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that we are surrounded by this creative mind which receives the direct impress of our thoughts and acts upon it. Core concepts 2 and 3, the same except stated differently. God is a triune, or threefold in nature, spirit, soul, and body. And divine creative process through eternality creates form. Course concept 7, reciprocity. Form replicates thought. From all that is visible is that which is invisible. What we are to the world is to us. The law of attraction. So what we're doing attracts into our lives what our thoughts are. We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal lovingness, and the eternal givingness of life to all. Core concept 6, we live in an infinitely abundant universe. That infinite abundance is available to us simply because of who we are. In fact, access to it is our divine birthright. We believe in the internality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul, forever and ever expanding. Core concept 9, this body may have a shelf life, but our souls are eternal. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through the intuitive and spiritual nature of the individual, and that any person who may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. If you want to know how we've covered them, you can listen to Reverend Chris's talks and this talk too at www.cslmodesto.com. So today we'll look at Shrek and cover 4 more spiritual concepts we haven't covered, and because it's so wonderfully illustrated, I'll cover 1 concept we've already looked at. As we do this, look for the lesson for you in your own life. First, an overview. Shrek is a green, nasty, vile ogre who hates everyone and just wants to be left alone. In order to have his swamp uninhabited by other creatures, he strikes a bargain with the evil Prince Farquaad. If Shrek will save Princess Fiona from a fiery dragon and bring her back to Farquaad so that he might marry her and become king, then Farquaad will reward Shrek with a deed to the swamp so he can be alone forever. Unfortunately for Shrek, at least so at first it appears so, he attracts a traveling companion on his journey to save Princess Fiona, a talking donkey who never stops talking. Eddie Murphy plays the role, so you can imagine how that character is played. Shrek and Donkey, as he calls him, successfully rescue the feisty princess who has a deep, dark secret of her own. The rest of the movie unfolds as they travel back to and then do deliver the princess to the evil prince. This brings us to core concept 7, reciprocity. The core concept we will repeat this morning is core concept 7, reciprocity. Because all that is visible is the invisible, or at the human level, what we are to the world is to us. Shrek decides that when he gets the deed to a swamp, he's going to build a huge wall around it. Donkey asks him who he's trying to keep out, and he says, everyone. Why? Donkey asks, to which Shrek says something very telling. Because they judge me before they even know me. But the dweeper question, who did the judging first? Granted, he's different. He's very big and very green, and he bathes in mud, and he brushes his teeth with goo, gray goo as a matter of fact, and he makes candles out of the wax he pulls out of his ears. But he's the one who's judged himself a horrible ogre. He believes that he is ugly, an ugly, hideous creature. His name even reflects it. Does anyone know that Shrek is a Yiddish word? Does anyone know what it means? Horrible thing. Horrible thing. He thinks he is a horrible thing, and so that is what he projects in the world, and therefore that is how people see him and how they treat him. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? This is a beautiful and obvious example of what we are to the world is to us. Reverend Chris has a friend whose answering machine message is another way of saying that. Be sure to love yourself because that's the only way the world knows how to treat you. Now to our 4 new concepts. Using the power of effect. Using the power to affect circumstances. In what we believe, Ernest Holmes writes, we believe in the control of conditions through the power of this mind, meaning the law of God, which receives a direct impress of our thoughts and acts upon it. It was Henry Ford who said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. Shrek crosses the dangerous swinging bridge over a sea of hot lava to rescue the princess in the tower. Many would-be rescuers have attempted this and failed, but Shrek absolutely believes that he can do this, and he does it with ease. Donkey, however, is terrified and says he can't do it. He even steps through a rotten slat and almost falls, but Shrek's knowing gets him across anyway. Jesus said, when I be lifted up, others are lifted up as well. Remember, we believe in the control of conditions through the power of the mind, which receives the direct impress of our thought and act upon it. I guess we can't say that too much today, the direct impress of our thoughts and acts upon it. The greatest benefit of manifesting our desire is who we become in the process, the faith and trust that is built, the greater reliance on spirit that comes from it. Donkey's response when he gets across, his strength is built up. Cool, he says when he gets across. Core concept 8, forgiveness. And you both sort of touched on that a little bit today. Remember, Shrek is really an unpleasant fellow. Very difficult to be around and particularly nasty to Donkey throughout the movie. But I love the role of Donkey. In Chris's classic literature classes that she took in college, she learned that a classic comedy is defined not by being funny, hold on, okay, in classic. Not being by funny, but in the end, no one dies, and usually there's a wedding or a reunion and a great integration of 2 worlds. And in the classic comedy model, there is a very, very important character. It's the character of the fool. It's always the fool who says something so profound to the protagonist or hero that things are turned around. Donkey is the fool in the classic sense in Shrek. And he turns Shrek around and teaches us core concept 8, forgiveness. After being nasty to Donkey throughout their journey and yelling at him and sending him away, at a particular point, Donkey left, but then came back. Shrek then snarls at Donkey and says, if I treat you so badly, then why did you come back? And Donkey gets right back in Shrek's face and says, because that's what friends do. They forgive each other. Core concept number 3, heaven is within us. We believe that heaven is within us and that we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. Not too many people really believe this, and therefore not too many really experience it. When Mother Teresa died and went to heaven, God greeted her at the pearly gates. Be thou hungry, Mother Teresa? Asked God. I could eat, Mother Teresa replied. So God opened a can of tuna and reached for a chunk of rye bread, and they began to share it. While eating this humble meal, Mother Teresa looked down into hell and saw the inhabitants devouring huge steaks and lobsters and pheasants and pastries. Curious but deeply trusting, she remained quiet. The next day, God again invited her to join him for a meal. Once again, it was tuna and rye bread. Once again, Mother Teresa could see the denizens of hell enjoying lamb, turkey, venison, and delicious desserts. She still said nothing. The following day, mealtime arrived, and another can of tuna was opened. She could no longer contain herself. God, she said meekly, I am grateful to be in heaven with you as a reward for the pious, obedient life I led. But here in heaven, all I get to eat is tuna and a piece of rye bread. And in the other place, eat like emperors and kings. I just don't understand it. God sighed. Let's be honest, Terry, he said. For just two people, it doesn't pay to cook. Shrek says there are a lot more to ogres than people think. Ogres are like onions. We have layers. And I think we all do. We all have layers. We have to get under some of those layers to get to the heaven within. So Shrek falls in love with Princess Fiona, not knowing that she is cursed by a spell that turns her into an ogre from sundown to sunup. But he believes she could never love him because she's a princess and she would never accept an ogre. Meanwhile, Fiona is falling in love with Shrek because she sees the layers underneath the ogre exterior, but is afraid to tell him that she becomes an ogre at sunset because she's afraid he won't love her if she is ugly. They both are making judgment on outward appearances instead of realizing that real love comes from within. I won't spoil the ending by saying what happens, but suffice it to say that they find what is real inside and then experience heaven on the outside. Finally, number 4, unity of all life, which brings us to another classic comedy element. Our final idea of this morning, integration of worlds. We believe in the unity of all life and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. Even though Shrek does get the deed to the swamp just as he wanted, he no longer wants to be alone and rejoices in having all the fairy tale creatures around and living in his land. And so the green monster is tamed and starts to live a life of love and joy. There is more misadventures awaiting Shrek and Fiona in Shrek 2 and 3, but all is well at the conclusion of Shrek. So where in your life do you see these 5 basic science of mind principles at work? Where in your life could you make some shifts now that you know or have been reminded of them to bring a more joyous, filled, harmonious, successful, abundant life? What we are to the world is to us. Control of conditions through the power of the mind, not the control that is important, as who we become in the process. Forgiveness. Heaven is within us, and we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. 5, all life is united, and the highest God and the innermost God is one God. Live from these principles, and the green monster will be forever tamed. And so it is.